Hello, I'm so happy I got a hold of you. Welcome back to another exciting episode of Lucious Showcase. I am Lucious T, and welcome to week 2 of 16-bit RPG month. And this week we are taking on the final of the Gaia trilogy, Illusion of Gaia. And this was actually recommended to me by one of my Twitter followers. So here you go, bro. I said you won the contest. I've been wanting a reason to play this game, and when he said Illusion of Gaia, I had to do it. So I played Soul Blazer, I played Terranigma. Terranigma is one of my favorite games on the Super Nintendo. I'm very much looking forward to this one. How do I feel? Let's find out.
There's a lot of games out there, some of which you've never even heard of. That's where I come in. I'm Lucious T. I've been playing games since the age of 2, and I have no life. This is Retroactive.
Illusion of Gaia, the middle child in the unofficial Gaia trilogy. I was looking forward to this game so much. I started it, I immediately enjoyed the combat, but wasn't aware of how the game worked. It tries to tell you how it works, but it's one of those things where unless you've done it, like a board game, until you actually play it, you don't understand what the rules are saying. So in this game, you have essentially screens or rooms of enemies. You push the start button and it'll show you where their location are on a black grid. There's really no map. I wish it kind of had a map, but it shows you a black screen and then these little blue dudes that are the demons. You gotta kill every single one of the demons in the room, and it'll also tell if there's items in the room. And once you kill them, sometimes they'll unlock pathways or whatnot, but once you kill every single one of them, then you will get an upgrade. You'll either get a defense upgrade, a health upgrade, or damage upgrade. And if you don't know that, you're kind of screwed, because the way this game works, unlike any other RPG I've really played on the Super Nintendo, is there's no backtracking. So as you progress through the game, if you miss out on the opportunity to level up, you won't get it later. So I got all the way to the first ruins, which are the temples in this game, and I got to the boss of that ruins, which is a demon dude, and I was just getting obliterated. I couldn't do anything. And I know you have the herbs that heal you, but I just had a feeling that I didn't see any shops in the game. So I figured those herbs were limited, and I didn't want to waste them all on the first boss. So I went to YouTube just to see if there was a secret I was missing, or if I just wasn't figuring something out, and I saw them push pause, and I saw the power they had, and they had like 6 damage or 5 defense or whatever, and I look at mine, I have 2 defense and 3 damage, and I'm like, what did I do wrong? And at this point, I hadn't realized that the only time I get the upgrades is when I kill every enemy in the room. So I remembered, well, when I started the game and I got through the prison section, I made it through some of the sections without killing everything, meaning that I missed out on power. And because I did that, I knew I was always going to be below the curve. And the way I play RPGs is you want to be ahead of the curve, because you can very, very easily get screwed in that scenario if you come across a boss that you just can't beat, or a scenario you just can't beat. So I did something I never do. I restarted the game. Legitimately. I restarted the game. I went back and I started fresh. Now luckily, because I'd already read all the dialogue and everything, I was able to get back to where I was. And I killed everything. And once I got to that battle, I still was underpowered compared to the video I saw, but I made quick work of the boss, only had to use 1 herb instead of 3, and I was firmly in the position I needed to be. Now the combat is pretty cool, although the button layout is unusual. So for a Super Nintendo game, you only use A and B, X and Y do nothing. And then the shoulder buttons also work, but they do the same thing. Now later in the game you get new abilities, like a charge up, and then you get a spin attack, and then for the transformations, which once again, I've followed Illusion of Gaia, but I've never watched videos on it. And so every once in a while I've seen just random stills of what appeared to be a giant dude, and I'm like, wow, I thought it was more of the art style from Super Nintendo games. Like, that doesn't look like something I've ever seen, like this big burly dude. Turns out there's transformations you do. So you have the kid version, or you transform into the Freedan version, which is the Dark Knight, who's a super powerful guy, and eventually gets a range attack. Now, some of those abilities you get, instead of having it be hold the charge button, which is the attack button, and then tap L and R together to do a spin and then set it off, or do the charge attack to then release, you could have just had it been mapped to another button. Like, why can't I just have the spin attack be mapped to Y or X? Or the menu button. The menu button is select, instead of having, I don't know why they did that. I don't know why they did. I rarely talk about button controls, but it felt so strange that I had X and Y do nothing the entirety of the game. I don't know why they did that. But that's how it plays, and you go through each one of the dungeons. There's different ruins, which this place takes place on real Earth, and it talks about the pyramids, the Great Wall of China. You have temples in the sky, but then you have the Incan ruins. So it's nice that it uses real-world settings, and it has really good messaging. It's a little on the nose at times, but as far as it has good messages of being a good person, taking care of animals, taking care of people, not being selfish, looking out for people's real struggles, talking about the evils of forced labor camps and, famine and things like that being real issues. And just a good message in this game that I kind of wish I had played as a kid, because it definitely, it rings a little bit more true now that I have age and experience. But it's kind of in line with obviously Quintet does good games, and it's a lot of that proto-story that Terranigma kind of took and evolved, in my opinion. Because Terranigma is a wonderful story. Illusion of Gaia is a little forced, but it's got good messaging. And there's also some real heartbreaking moments in it. You have the guy who you compete in the wine drinking contest, who you think's a jerk, because it's whoever drinks the wrong glass of wine dies, but then you find out that he actually had a terminal illness and was doing this to try and amass money for his family. But then you talk to his family, and his family's like, we don't care about money, we just want our loved ones. There's another guy that you find dead in one of the Incan temple, who's looking for the golden ship, and then you run into his family later in the game. You're like, oh, I wonder when Dad's coming home. And then the most sad of anything is poor Hamlet, the awesome pig, that essentially sacrifices himself because there's a village of starving villagers who have resorted to cannibalism, and they're about to eat you and your party, and the pig, being an absolute bro, throws himself on the fire to basically say, no, don't eat them, eat me. F's for pig, F for Hamlet. And they had to throw in a damn to eat or not to heat, that is the question. Hamlet joke. Well done, Quintet, you bastards. But all in all, wonderful game. It's very linear, and you gotta be careful, because if you progress too far, which you won't even realize you will, you'll talk to someone, you'll talk to Kara, the princess, and she'll say, oh, let's go to the next area, and then boom, you're in the next area. So you gotta be careful. You can miss stuff, you can miss power. By and large, be very, very thorough going through and killing every single enemy to get every power up before you talk to any NPC that can possibly take you out of a zone. There's red crystals you can find, which you give to a red crystal vendor, who will give you power-ups generally. I think there's like 3, 5, 10, 15, 20, and so on, that you get different rewards from him. And if you manage to find all 50 red crystals, that's what opens up the secret boss, which is a boss that's in Soul Blazer, and that's why people connect the two games, is because they have that, and they refer to the main character in Soul Blazer as Blazer. Now, unfortunately, I didn't find all the gems. That might be something I'd like to do some days, go back and get them all to fight that secret boss, because allegedly he's pretty hard. And there's also a third form you can turn into, which you find once you get to the Great Pyramid, which is a super cool and really well animated for the Super Nintendo, almost blue fire beast thing. And he's got this long elongated arm, and it's almost like you're playing as a blue version of Carnage from Maximum Carnage, and he's just completely badass, floats and all this. And you end up using him for a boss gauntlet once you get to the Tower of Babel, and using him on the last fight. And speaking of brutality, there's a lot of real moments in this game. They have the nemesis who you never see, but you hear about, the jackal. He catches up to you in the temple, and you play your flute and set off a booby trap that lights him on fire, and you see him burn to death. Like, legitimately burn to death. So there's some raw, real moments in this game, and that's one of the lasting impressions I have on it. Super cool. It is definitely up there with my favorite Super Nintendo games. It is a lot more DNA to Link to the Past than, say, Final Fantasy VI, but super enjoyable and really cool to see the progression between Soul Blazer, Illusion of Gaia, to the Terranigma. It makes it even sadder to think that Terranigma didn't come here, because it is really the fulfillment of so much potential that the first two games laid the groundwork for. But yeah, if I was going to give Illusion of Gaia a rating, I give it a 9.25. 9.25. Not as good as Chrono Trigger. There are the fact that you can miss stuff. I had to restart the game. Was a little annoying. Not so bad. But for someone who doesn't have as much experience with RPGs, you could get yourself into a very, very unwinnable situation. Especially on the Egypt boss. She was so freaking tough. Hardest boss in the game, in my opinion. Harder than the last boss. The last boss was more just about pattern recognition. The Egypt boss was just hard as hell. I had to use 3 herbs on her. And then when I played against her in the boss rush, I'd use a herb on her too. Those aren't infinite. But yeah, great game. As far as pick it up, skip it, emulate it, whatever. This one I can wholeheartedly say pick it up. It's still a cheap game, amazingly so. Goes for $20, if not less. Yeah, I mean, hell, you can get a box copy for under $100. That's insane for any of these Super Nintendo RPGs. It's Soul Blazers over $150 easily right now. But yeah, as far as pick it up, skip it, emulate it, pick it up. And there you have it, Illusion of Gaia. Great game. Pick it up. What a wonderful game. It's nice to have the trilogy completed, especially looking from Soul Blazer to Illusion of Gaia to Terranigma. You can see that progression, and I enjoyed it. So let me know what you thought of today's video. Let me know if you have any comments or if you think I should go back and play that secret boss. And as always, it's been so great getting a hold of you guys. Take care.